it's a brave thing to be an actor. I love actors because it's the hardest thing in the world, and you have to have a spirit of overcoming. You have to be so resilient because you're gonna get more no's than anybody in the world. That's just the truth. What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And listen, we have Tory Kittles, actor, writer, director. And for the 3 people who don't know you, I'm going to read your IMDb bio.
That's
it's cheesy. And right in front of you.
Right in
so
front.
It's going to be super fun.
Go ahead. I'm just going to listen.
Tory Kittles was born and raised in Lottie, Florida. A lover of music as a child, he eventually followed his curiosity and answered a local newspaper ad searching for actors and was hired as an extra on the comedy show
Kenan and Kel. You know, that's Kenan.
Yes.
Kenan Thompson.
Yes.
From Saturday Night Live. Yeah.
Kittles soon began studying the craft of acting with Russ Blackwell of Circle in the Square.
They don't have Tommy Draper on there?
We need to talk to Anonymous.
Clearly, I didn't write that bio.
Because this guy did a terrible job. Shortly after, he was introduced to the late casting director Mally Finn, who invited him to read for director Joel Schumacher. Schumacher cast him in his critically acclaimed film Tigerland. In addition, Schumacher asked Kittles to write a song that was featured as the film's theme, Looking for Charlie. Kittles quickly relocated to Los Angeles to pursue an acting career. Since his feature debut in Tigerland, Kittles has worked extensively in film, television, as well as on stage. And they have you recently finishing the independent action thriller American Heist.
Oh, that was a while ago.
Which is a while ago.
I was when was that, 2007 or 8 or something like that?
That is a good question. And let's really talk about, just real quickly for the people's, your more recent, super interesting shit. True Detective, Steel Magnolias, Olympus Has Fallen, Intruders, the TV series. Oh, yeah. Man Down, The Catch. Good Lord, it keeps
Colony
going.
For sci-fi
Colony,
fans.
sci-fi fans. And most recently, Dragged Across Concrete.
Ooh.
So, Tory, growing up in Lottie, Florida, was it your dreams of being an actor as a kid?
You know, Lottie is a town of 700 people, one stoplight. It's like it's a bunch of good people, but I grew up in the 80s, kid of the 80s, and I won't say it was my dream because it was so far away from the thought process of being a kid growing up in that environment. Most people got jobs. Like my father worked for DuPont, which is a mining company, and my mom was a nurse. My grandmother and other aunts, they were teachers. And we had a prison right in the middle of our town. Like it was a minimum security prison, and every day we would drive by it on the bus going to school. You'd pass the prison, and so the thing was that you didn't want to end up there. That was like get out of town. Somewhere in there, though, I think that small town informed imagination because we didn't have a lot to do. So we were always making up things to do. Me and my cousins, we would do crazy shit. Like, I remember one time we took my grandmother's mattress off of her bed and took it outside the house to jump off the roof onto her mattress. But we had the presence of mind to actually film this thing. Like we got photos of it. Yeah, man. They're like photos of me and my cousins midair. Like, hey, my grandmother whipped our ass for that too. See, this was back in the days where you got your ass whipped if you did some dumb shit.
So you're filming it with like a little camcorder?
Little camera, yeah. Like one of those little, 16 millimeter, one of those little things.
Yeah.
I don't know how we had one of those things. But and my grandmother, she also owned a liquor store. She owned a bar. My grandfather, he was in World War II, and he when he got out, they built this business together. So it was the first black business, in the town. And it was called Tompkins Liquors, and it was more like a grocery store as well. It was, sold candy to the kids, sold groceries, and then at night it turned into a club. And so my grandmother, she ran that, My mom was nursing, so it was sort of community upbringing where everybody had a hand. You know, you couldn't get away with anything because somebody in the neighborhood would tell your grandma. My grandma was a disciplinarian, and you know, so. But imagination, I think, was everything because there wasn't a lot to do, and I was just a kid who fell in love with the pictures. I like saying pictures. I don't know why. It just seems so much more. I don't know, prestigious, I guess, in a way, you know, because it's motion pictures and it's like, oh, it's movies, but I like pictures. I like, you know, I've been reading recently Sidney Lumet, you know, just studying his work, and, you know, maybe that's why I'm thinking about pictures. Anyway, that's a segue. So somewhere along the way, I fell in love with it, and I started, you know, watching a lot of movies. But this was before cable TV. We didn't even have cable TV. We had VCR.
Gotcha.
Right?
Was there like a video shop in town that you would rent?
It was 7 miles away. The nearest town was called Stark. Yeah, Lottie had it was a train track. All the black people lived on one side of train tracks. All the white people lived on the other side of train tracks. Very segregated town. Ku Klux Klan marched there when I was high school and kid. They slashed my tires because I was like one of the only kids to have a car. And yeah, my grandmother one night she was like, I saw the sheets running out of the yard. And I was like, you didn't wake us up. But so, you know, so that was sort of my upbringing. And I think just that world, though, it gives you such a variety of choices, you know what I mean, where your mind goes and the people you deal with. Because we had a lot of characters, you know, like that I grew up with, just people that come back from Vietnam, you know, cowboys. My grandmother she did business with all of these people, you know, the guys that would come deliver the liquor. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think just getting involved with acting and all that stuff, I was always a good observationist. I was always watching people and studying people. That was always interesting to me, but it wasn't something that was like, hey, I fell in love with this and I'm just going to do it. That didn't happen until years later. I was trying to figure out a major. I was in college. I was playing basketball in college, and I remember calling my mom and was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And
what are you, a freshman, sophomore? Where are you at?
I was like a sophomore at this point because I was getting ready. I was at a JUCO, this junior college called Valencia, and I was playing ball, and I was getting ready to transfer to the University of Central Florida. And but I was like, I don't know what my major should be, and I had a speech impediment as a kid, so I thought I was gonna do speech therapy. Thought I was going to do speech therapy, and then it changed to physical therapy because my mom was a nurse, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll do something in the medical field, marketing. It just kept changing, you know, and so I was like, well, I'm going to play basketball. That's fine. I'll just play basketball. I'll get a degree. And then the coach didn't give me a scholarship. He wanted me to walk on. I couldn't afford to walk on, so I gave up the basketball dreams. And I said, I got to get a job. And that's when I picked up a newspaper and I saw this ad. It said actors, extras, models, and called up this guy who was an extras agent. And I went in, I met him, guy by the name of Jeff Callender. And big personality, man, big personality. Like you walk in, he's just like, hey, you know, and he sent me on this extra job. And I was watching Kenan and Kel, like while being on that set, and it clicked in that this is what I'm gonna do.
Really, right then and
right then and there. You know, they say you catch the bug, but that was it. It was like, this is it. This is what I'm gonna do. So I started studying with a guy named Russ Blackwell, who was.
Tell me about that. Where was that at?
This was at a place called Zoe and Company, and Russ was out of Circle in the Square,
right,
in New York.
Which is a legendary
program, legendary school.
Amazing lab for actors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. No, there so many talented people come out of that program. And but he was doing a lot of theater, and he was teaching at Zoe and Company. I think Mandy Moore went there at one point. This was in Orlando. And you know, I remember my first acting class, because when you're a kid, I wanted to change my environment. I just knew, like, I got to get out of here. Like, you know, my aspirations are bigger than just being in a small town. And I remember the first time I went into an acting class with Russ, and, you know, you had to prepare a monologue. That was the thing. Prepare a monologue, and you come in.
You remember what you did?
it was a book of monologues. So it was like, it wasn't, this is
classic,
right?
written by nobody.
Right, exactly. Like, I didn't even have the presence of mind to be like, oh, I should go read a play. I knew nothing about it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I just had a book of monologues. And I was like, oh, that'll make me sound cool. I'll do that one. And I don't remember what it was, but I remember this. I got up, I did the monologue, and I always had a fear of getting up just based on my speech impediment as a kid. You know, I've always had a fear.
What was your speech impediment? I'm sorry. What was your speech? Was it a stutter? Was it some sort of?
It was a stutter and a lisp.
Oh wow.
Yeah. There's a story of my uncle. This is it's like, you know, in the South, so getting up is always involving the church, right? You know, my mom she ran the church choir, and so Easter was like a big thing, and all the kids get up and you do your you know, speech poem or your speech presentation in front of the whole church, and probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 or something like that, and I got up in front of the church. I'd worked on this thing. I was like, you know, I was ready to go. And I just remember I got up in front of church and I went, this is Tory Kittles saying, Happy Easter. And I just like couldn't get it out. Just couldn't get it out. So I ran out of the church. Here's the thing too, like, there's no sympathy where I'm from. Like, you don't get like, oh my God. No. You get picked, you get bullied, you get picked on. Like, that was, you know, for a while, it was like, oh, this is Tory Kittles saying Happy Easter, you know? Yeah, I had an uncle who would make fun of that. Like, still to this day, if I go home, he's like, you know.
Never forget.
Tough love, man. But, you know, I think that is probably the major factor of going, that's not going to define me. I'm going to get over that. You know what I mean? And so somewhere in deep in the subconscious, that was always there and was always and probably still is a motivating factor. You know, I mean, there's still times where, you know, you get up in front of an audience, you get the little jitters, but I learned to appreciate them now. It's actually a great feeling, you know, to be like, oh, I got that. It's like butterflies before the big game. You know what I mean? What's going to happen? Anything's possible.
It's amazing how some of those like seminal events of stuttering, of social issues really define an actor and almost make them get into acting to like overcome.
To overcome it, yeah. I think, you know, it's a brave thing to be an actor. I love actors because it's the hardest thing in the world, and you have to have a spirit of overcoming. You have to be so resilient because you're going to get more no's than anybody in the world. That's just the truth. You know, young actors ask me all the time, like, you know, well, what's your advice? And I'm like, you know what? Learn to appreciate no. Learn to appreciate it, because the more no's you get out of the way, it gets you closer to your yes. And it's actually when you discover the best of yourself in the no, you know what I mean? That's when you actually really can be introspective and pay attention to what you're feeling. And, you know, and those things are the things that help you when you actually do get hired. You know, like, it's getting to the job. It's not the job. You know what I mean? It's like the preparation is in between all of that stuff. You know, the preparation is every day. It's like it's you know, sometimes it's just mundane, it's monotonous, but within that you're always learning something. But you have to know, you have to love it, you know, too. But
so go Russ's class.
So Russ's class,
you have your monologue. Are you in the back of your mind freaking out that you're gonna
get up and do this
lock
thing?
up and do this Easter Sunday fuck up?
No, I'd gotten over the stutter at that point.
Okay.
You know, they had I had a speech therapist that would come get me out of class. This is also like the worst thing. I think, like, now I look back on that, I'm like, why would you come get the kid out of class in front of all the other kids to like go, hey, this kid has a problem, this kid has an impediment, and just so you guys know, everybody else in the class. So then, you know, you go off, you do your 15, 30 minutes with the therapist, and then you come back, they put you in class, and the other kids are looking at you like, what were you doing? Huh? Oh, something's wrong with you? Oh, no, for real? You know? So at Russ's, I'm sorry, man, I'm just going off on tangents.
No, I love
here.
it. No.
So So we're in this class. I remember it was so small. It was like a little theater, maybe 20, 30 person theater. You know what I mean? And it's like a class of 10 to 15. And everybody had gotten up and did their thing. And I think my thought really was like, well, I can't be worse than them. It's a bunch of bad actors in acting class. I was one of them. You know what I mean? I am not ashamed to say it. And but I got up, I do this monologue, and Russ goes, "You're an actor."
Wow.
And that was like the first, time where I started to think, well, hell, maybe I am, because you come into I came into it where I just wanted to be famous. I just wanted to change my environment. I just wanted to get out of that. That mentality, that community, like not run away from it because it's all still very much a part of me, but I wanted something bigger than that. And so I just thought, oh, I'll be famous. But, being an actor has absolutely nothing to do with fame. And it was the first time that I actually started to think of myself as an actor and what that meant. And, and I started reading a lot of books, and I was doing extra work at the time too.
What were the books that, are there any ones that you were like made a change for you or clicked in?
Yeah, well, and I've James Earl Jones' biography, because he also had.
He also
I was just
had
going to say you were in very good company in terms of speech impediments. And
Sam
actors.
Jackson has a speech impediment.
That's right.
Gang of people. But James Earl Jones, Sidney Poitier had trouble with language because he was from the islands, and so I read his biography, James Earl Jones, and James Earl Jones has really helped me out because he talked about writing. This was actually when I started writing more, because he would write everything out, things that he had trouble, speaking. He found out if you write it out, then he wouldn't stutter. It's so
Did that method work for you too?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so I started out just studying biographies, and then I was doing this extra job one time. It was called Clover. It was Ron Canada. I know you guys know Ron Canada. He's in Wedding Crashers. He plays the butler, the funny butler in Wedding Crashers.
Okay.
And he's been in a gang of stuff, But he, that question you always ask, actors who've been doing it longer and you recognize them. And I was an extra, and I went up to him and said, what should I be doing? And he was like, you need to be reading plays. And I took that to heart. He was like, you should read a play a week. So I started reading 3 plays a week, right? So I was reading everything. I was reading David Rabe. I was reading August Wilson, Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller. I was reading everything I could get my hands on, and still doing extra work. And I made a decision that I was going to move to LA. And this was sometime maybe fall of 99 or something like that. I was like, I'm gonna move to LA. I don't know how, because I didn't really know anybody out in LA. I was just like, this is what I'm gonna do. And I was working 3 jobs at the time. I was bartending. I was working for that agency, for Jeff at this agency. I was helping him book talent. And I was fixing appliances at Sears. And so I was doing all those things. I was like, I gotta switch this up, And so I just gave myself a deadline. End of the year, I'm out of here. I'm just gonna pack up and I'm gonna go. Right about that time, I do this extra job, and Anthony Hopkins and Cuba Gooding Jr. This movie, Instinct, and I'm an extra in this movie, and I go up to Sir Anthony Hopkins. He wasn't a sir then. He was just, call me Tony. Right. But and I asked him, what advice you give like a young actor, and he said, be bold and mighty forces will follow.
Oh, beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. And I took that to heart, and so I was like, I'm moving. I made up my mind. And then shortly after, this is how like sort of things conspire when you're supposed to be. See, I think you're chosen to do which, and then you either step into it or you don't. You know what I mean? And I think any artistic medium, you have to kind of be chosen for it, because it's going to be so much heartache that you're going to have a deep belief, to get over that.
That's why they call it a calling, right? You have to
Yeah,
answer
it's calling.
the call.
Just right. Exactly right. You got to be called to do it. And, once, like, you get these just affirmations along the way, and people give it to you. It's so funny, man. I learned that if you just keep crawling, keep going, like, people will pick you up. People will help you get there. You know what I mean? If you're walking your path. And shortly after that conversation, I got an audition for this film called Tigerland. And I go in, and it's with Mally Finn, late great Mally Finn, who was responsible for Titanic and L.A. Confidential, and she discovered so many talented people. And I auditioned for her, and she goes, "I want you to come back tomorrow, do the same thing for Joel Schumacher." So I go back the next day.
Do you remember the scene? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was a scene that that for a part that I didn't get. It was because they'd already cast my buddy Russell Richardson. It was that part, but they were reading actors, just off of those sides, using that as a scene. And
did you work with your acting coach at the time, or did you just like work it out? Like,
no, there was. Oh man, you know what? I did. I got with Russ wasn't available. I remember this, and I got recommended a guy by the name of Hank Stone. Who's an actor. He was in The Patriot, and he was coaching down in Orlando at the time. And so I worked with him on it. I think you have to have a coach, somebody to give you a different perspective. I've been working with Tommy since I've been out here. So that's, it's like almost 20 years. Wow. Right? And I wouldn't have the successes I've had without that. You know what I mean? Like, I absolutely believe you need somebody just to sort of help you figure it out, just to talk, just give you options, give you choices, and look at it from a different perspective. And so, I got with Hank, and then I went back in the next day. I did this thing for Joel, and he, on the spot, said, "I want you in the movie." Wow. He said, "I want you in the movie."
How good did that feel?
It was great. It was great, but it's like these things, these feelings.
Were you feeling it during the audition? Did you Mally said, "Do the same thing." Mm-hmm. You go in there,
which you could never do. You can never do the same thing again.
But you're trying to get in that ballpark, right?
Yeah.
And how nervous are you?
I wasn't too nervous then. I was. There's sort of like a feeling of like, you definitely get the butterflies, but it's also like a good feeling. And then there's a really interesting thing. This happens certain times when you're performing, where it's like you're floating, and it's like a tingle, and it's not something that you can control, and you just know that you just got to get out of the way of it. And I felt that in that room, and so I knew I was gonna get it. I knew it lined up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like,
I knew it lined up. And so I wasn't surprised. I was surprised he said it in the room, because that doesn't happen. No. So I was surprised at that, but I wasn't surprised that I got it. I felt like I was going to get it. And I did. And then and he, Joel's interesting because he started. He said, "I want you to start keeping a journal. Create this character. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's his name is gonna be Ryan. It's Vietnam War. These guys are away from their family, because I just want you to start journaling, about this character and creating that backstory." And so I started doing that. And by the time we started shooting, which was, January, I think, of 2000 or late 99, maybe it was late 99, into 2000. And actually we ended up shooting the picture on a base that my grandfather was stationed at during World War II. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. It was just one of those things. I mean, all the guys came to my grandmother's house and ate, and y'all got pictures of like us, man. We were babies, like just babies.
What incredible people coming out of that movie.
Oh man.
By the way,
it's Shea Wiggum, That was Shay's first movie. Colin Farrell, it turned him into a star. Cole Hauser and Neil Brown Jr., Russell Richardson, Afimo Omalami,
Tory Kittles.
Who's he?
Yeah.
So we had a bunch of talented people, and Schumacher just kept adding things for me to do. And it was one of those times where you realize what the work, I realized the work was the backstory. So he saw that he could go to me and go, hey, just do it, because I walked around with it. You create that backstory. It's good exercise for actors. You create the backstory. It's not about the words so much. It's about living in the world. And so he just, and this has happened to me several times, like where, the role was enhanced or increased just based on the research that you've done and the subtext, the work beyond the work. And he just kept, every day, he was, hey, why don't you say that? Why don't you do that? And one day he comes up to me and says, Tory, why don't you write a song? He didn't even know I wrote music.
Wow.
He didn't know. You know what I mean? Very serendipitous how it happened. And so I go over by a tree, and maybe 5 minutes it took, maybe, and I write this song called Looking for Charlie. And it just happened. Like, it just happened.
Now, for people that don't know the history of the Vietnam War, Charlie was
Charlie
a term
was the enemy.
Viet Cong, right?
The Vietnam War. Charlie was the enemy, and I started thinking about all the things that that a soldier leaves behind. And it just sort of came to me. Literally, it was like, I miss my mama, I miss my woman and kid. I think about all the things from way back when. I miss my grandma's apple pie. I miss getting high. And my Uncle Sam is sending me to die. And, and I take that, I go to Joe, I say, hey, I got this song. And I sang it for him just like that. And he goes, we're going to film it. I get Neil Brown Jr., a couple other guys. They do the background, the humming. And I sing it. We film it. He puts it in the movie. He goes, what are you doing after this is over? I said, I don't know. He said, you should move out to LA. I'll help you out. Wow. And so we wrapped the picture. I moved out a week later. I didn't want to waste no time. He said move, so I moved, and I got out here, and didn't know anybody, except I had a cousin who was working for Southwest Airlines. And I stayed with him 2 days, and then I found a place. Over in Hollywood, a little small place with a Murphy bed. It's $500 a month.
Oh, right.
Right. Everything was included, $500 a month. And got a job. I was delivering pizzas over in Glendale. I was telemarketing some company in the Valley. Selling, what were we selling? I don't even remember, man. We were selling something, and I was just doing little jobs, anything I could to just sort of pay the rent, and I finally catch up with Joe doing some ADR, which is when you go in and you re-record lines that aren't clear, and he goes, you moved out? Yeah. And he goes, well, what do you want to do? And around this time, I heard that Denzel Washington was getting ready to direct for the first time this movie called Antoine Fisher. And I said, I hear Denzel's directing. He goes, oh, yeah, I know him. And he says, well, what role do you want? I said, well, I want the lead. He said, well, I don't know if I can do that, but I know his agent, So he calls up Ed LaMotta. Ed LaMotta, the late great Ed LaMotta.
Legendary.
Yeah, legendary. Represent, Julia Roberts, Richard Gere, Billy Crystal, Denzel, Nicolas Cage. So many, big stars, and I go in to meet him, and they signed me right on the spot. It goes, we're gonna sign you, and then he got me a meeting with Denzel for Antoine Fisher. I didn't get the part. But I met him. So, so that was sort of my intro. And then I got, and then I just was, once I had an agent, and you're taking meetings, and, you're just putting it out there, and I found some success fairly early,
Now, I met you kind of around then, right?
You met me right around then because Shay Wickham, who, we're great friends, and Shay was moving out. He moved out here right around the same time because he was coming from New York, and Shay introduced me to you, and so yeah, and that's when we started working together. So Tommy, that was 2000. That was 2000.
Wow. Going back, like a lot of your training early on was being on set and watching as an extra.
Yeah.
Did you learn a lot from that?
Absolutely. You learn what to do, what not to do. You learn how many people it takes to actually make a picture. So many moving pieces. You learn how to protect your performance within the structure because there's so much going on a set, but the best acting comes from being relaxed, I think, and being able to sort of insulate yourself from be accessible. You have to be accessible because it's a collaborative and you're working with, different people, director, different actors, but you also have to insulate and protect the things that you need for a character as well. And a lot of that you learn just by being on set, just by being on set. So yeah, and I was doing also before I moved out, skipped over a lot of this, but I was doing student films, plays, anything to be around it. I just wanted to be around it. I wanted to be on a set because I love being on a set. Even those late hours, you're just watching everything, watching the director, watching the producers, watching other actors.
And those are those observation skills that you had.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think maybe I read this in maybe it was Eric Morris who talked about you should go out and just observe. I think that the being and being his book Being, and I would
probably.
Huh? What's that?
No acting, please.
No acting, please. Yeah, maybe.
Or being and doing.
Being and doing. That's the one. Being and doing, and so I would go to malls and just sit and just watch people. I would just sit and just watch, just casually just watch behavior.
Observation is a highly, highly underrated art form, I think. It's a real skill.
I'm observing you right now.
But you also were a participant. Like some of the things you said before, going up to Anthony Hopkins and asking him his advice, talking to Russ Blackwell and asking him, what do I need to do to be an actor? Like those are things that a lot of people, sometimes, you have actors that are really gregarious, but some are really shy. Some would shy away from doing that kind of stuff. But you went there. You went out. When you were doing ADR for Tigerland, talking to Joel Schumacher and bringing up Denzel Washington and talking about that. That's rare too. That seems to me a special thing. Is that something that innately you have as a?
No, I'm innately shy. Just because of, just my communication history, I'm more so the person to not actually do it, or out of respect for that person's working, like, hey, I don't want to do that. But also too, it's a fine line. You know what I mean? It's a fine line, and I do, because I believe in respecting people and their process and all that stuff. But I also think you can't be scared to take chances. You have to take chances. I mean, if you're bold enough to step into this profession, I don't think you being bold one time does not a career make. You have to continuously be bold. You have to continuously take chances. You constantly reevaluating and learning things about yourself, trying different things to deepen yourself, so you can then deepen the work, which is why, I said the things that you're doing in between jobs are the things that prepare you for the next character. We were talking about Dragged Across Concrete, and, I didn't find that role. That role found me. I wasn't available to even meet on it. I was doing a play. I was doing Shakespeare, down at the Old Globe.
Yes.
And
I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, Tommy came to see it. Where were you, man? Why didn't you come?
Oh, I would have loved to have seen it. What was the Shakespeare play?
Richard II.
Oh,
and I played Bolingbroke.
Ah.
Yeah, it's me and Robert Sean Leonard and a bunch of other really good actors out of New York. And Erica Smith directed it. And we had a great run, but I was unavailable. I couldn't be here. Agent sent me the script, and the last thing you want to do when you're, on stage every night doing Shakespeare is read a script, let alone one that's 165 pages.
Yes. Yes.
But my agent at the time convinced me, said, you got to read this. And I read it one after a show, and I couldn't put it down. I went straight through it, even at 165 pages. I was like, this is so unique. This is unlike anything I've ever read, just in terms of the rhythm, his play on words. He is a unique, singular voice, and that popped off. And also too, the character. I was like, there's no way this is going to end up like this. I don't want to give it away, but just the characters and how he would switch them around, switch over point of views. Like, you start out the movie with one character's point of view, and then you switch to another one, and then even in like some of the most tense moments, he will cut out of that and jump you right into a whole nother point of view. So he was playing with structure in a way that I hadn't seen before. Some people call it Tarantino-esque. Maybe, but it's still his own,
Yeah, he has a
He has a very unique voice. And so I was like, this is great. I can't come audition. And, Vince Vaughn, actually, man. Vince Vaughn, who I'd met years ago, and we were friends. He had just come off of a phenomenal performance in Brawl in Cell Block 99 with Zoller. And he was lobbying on my behalf. You see how things that are for you, they're just for you. Like, I hadn't talked to Vince in a while, but he was telling Zoller, he was in Zoller's ear saying, hey man, you gotta check out Tory Kittles. And so Zoller did, and what Zoller discovered was he was like, I know him. I've been a fan of his work, he was a fan of shitty movies, man. Like, I was like, wait, you know that movie? I got on the phone with him, the next day. And he was like, yeah, I really appreciated your performance in that. He goes, the movie wasn't good, but what I found in all of your work was that it was consistent. So, see, people are paying attention even when you think they're not paying attention, And so we talked. He was from Florida. He is from Florida. I'm from Florida. We had that connection. And I told him, I simply told him, I said, look, I know how to play this for you. I know how to do this for you, and I could do this for you really well. And he said, I'm offering it to you. And I've been around now for a minute. Most times people say that, and they don't really follow through. But he did.
What was that hook for you? Did you read it and you felt it in your belly?
I got the same feeling. The same feeling that I talked about when
in Tigerland, right?
Tigerland.
Yeah. Okay.
When you get that, it's sort of like you're floating, and it's sort of like a chill. It's sort of like tingle, and it's I don't know. It's almost it's spiritual. It's like that artistic spiritual place where it just makes sense. And you don't know whether I didn't think he was going to just offer it to me. I thought I was probably going to have to jump through hoops that I wasn't available to jump through, But I think, being in that play actually got me that role. Not being available sometimes will get you things, move things that are for you closer to you. And but I had that after reading it. I put it down, and I just had that feeling that it's like a floating feeling. And you just go, oh man, I know what this is. And so I confidently said to him, I know what this is. It wasn't me putting on for him to try to get the part. I was like, nah, I knew. And I think he felt the authenticity of that.
It sounds like confidence, not overconfidence, but confidence.
Yeah. And also too, coming off of a play, I think coming off of a play, I love getting on stage because you are never sharper than when you're doing it every night. You have so many choices available to you because you're playing with your instrument every night, and you're learning different things about yourself. And when you're doing it with Shakespeare, you're being stretched in a way that, we typically don't stretch ourselves. And so, yeah, I was confident. I was confident that I could do it, and I was confident enough to tell him that. And he offered it to me. And we closed the play on a Saturday night. I think I talked to him on a Tuesday or Wednesday. We closed the play on a Saturday night. I was on a plane on Sunday. Wow. And we were rehearsing stunt scenes on Monday.
Well, it's a tour de force performance that you have in Dragged Across Concrete. And
Thank
the movie, there are a lot of luminaries in that movie, but you're carrying the movie. Your character is central to that movie and the way it's told. And I just think you more than hold your own with some big names, and it's really, really cool to see you dance with those people. That was some great scenes with Mel Gibson and really, really powerful stuff.
Yeah, I think it all begins with the scribes. Like, the actor can't be good if it's not on the page, and also too, like, thank you for that, for saying that in compliment. But it's so many things that go into a performance, not just me. It's Mel who is listening and is in those moments with you. Michael Jai White, Zoller knew exactly what he needed and wanted from each scene. So many people involved. So Vanessa Bell Calloway, Miles Truitt. So all the people that I'm in scenes with too. So if I'm good, it's because they're good. If I'm, it begins with the scribe. It begins on the page, and then it transcends into the performance of all the people that you're talking to and living in moments with.
Tell me what's special about working with Mel as regards to an actor, because there's so much bullshit around him, but we forget he's a great fucking actor.
Yeah, he's a great actor. He's a great actor, and one of the most generous actors I've ever worked with. He's
really, how so?
Just great listener. He's open. He's honest. He's raw. You know what I mean? Like,
so you're really feeling him in the moment.
Yeah,
he's really present with you.
You create a space. Once you. And we talked a lot, and we shared personal stories, things like that, just to open each other up, to being in these moments. And he was kind enough to do that. And every actor doesn't do that. But
so that was, who is kind of facilitating that in regards, so you guys are kind of doing that as like a preparation unconsciously?
Well, we rehearsed, we rehearsed a day. We had scenes together. So Zoller got us together, and we went through each of the scenes that we were in together. Just me and Mel, we read through them all with Zoller. And
how valuable is that? That doesn't always happen, right?
It doesn't happen. It used to happen all the time, when you'd have like a couple-week rehearsal process, and you start at a table and you get it up on its feet, sort of like play rehearsal. But for pictures and television, it doesn't happen too much these days, where you get that 2-week space. And we had a week, though. We had a week of rehearsal, but we had a day of just Mel, myself, and Zoller, and we went through everything, and then we went and had dinner after that and talked, and so I think just that initial meeting broke the ice, and then it was very organic. I think everyone knew what we wanted to achieve, and so you want it to work, so you want to find the openness, but we didn't have to work hard to find that openness. I think that was a trust, and also Mel had given me a job years ago. I think it was my first job second job in LA. Mel produced a thing called Invincible. It was a pilot, sort of a bike door pilot that they aired on TBS, and it was me and Billy Zane and Byron Mann, and we shot it over in Australia. But it was a co-pro between Mel and Jet Li. And so so I had met him then, and then I met him again. I think I actually did a little small bit part on this film called Paparazzi that he produced, and so so there was already a familiarity, and also Ed LaMotta represented Mel, and so we had that connection, and so it was very organic. We didn't have to push for a relationship at all. And I think when you try to push for relationships like that, they never work out anyway. It has to happen in a natural way.
Was S. Craig Zoller working and directing with you guys in rehearsal? Or was he letting you kind of riff and find your own connection in the work when you guys were kind of going over it on that day that you're talking about? Or was he already trying to kind of get his fingers in there and craft a little bit?
No, he wasn't crafting too much at all. I think he knew what he had when he cast us. He knew what we both sounded like. He knew what our rhythms. He knew. He was more so listening to us. And just letting us go through the scenes, and then we would offer up thoughts, and then he'd offer up thoughts, and it was very collaborative. Yeah, it wasn't, it's funny, man. It's not, once you get there, it's not hard. It's just getting to that place is the hard thing. But once you got there, it was all really play. The only thing that became a tough thing about that shoot was the night shoots. The last 3 weeks, you've seen the picture, and the last 3 weeks were all nights. And there's something psychologically that happens to you when you're not getting any sleep. And I think I was averaging 3 hours of sleep, and I was preparing Colony as well. Because Colony, and this is how this all happened. Talk about the magic of Hollywood sometimes, man. Like, so many things have to conspire for things to work in your favor. So once I got the offer for Dragged Across Concrete, I had a conflict. I was on this show called Colony, and there was an overlap of 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks of Dragged Across Concrete overlapped with the first episode of the new season for Colony. And the benefit, there was like, a good thing about it was that they both shot in Vancouver. But so I had to go to my showrunners, Ryan Condal and Carlton Hughes and Wes Took, and I had to ask, like, hey man, I got this opportunity, and I'd like for it to work. Obviously, I'm committed to the show, but I would love to go do this picture. And they were fans of Zoller's.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, see, these are, they were fans of Zoller's, and they said, if there's any way for us to make it work, we'll make it work for you. And they rewrote the whole first episode so I could go shoot Dragged Across Concrete.
Awesome.
Forever grateful for that. They didn't have to do that.
No.
Contractually, they were not obligated to it, but they made it happen. And they came. Ryan and Wes actually came to a screening a couple weeks ago that we had at the ArcLight. So it meant a lot for me to have them there, because it wouldn't have happened without those guys. Like I said, man, there's so many different moving pieces in getting, to that finished product. It really is about, and that's why it's not just about me. It's not just about any actor. There's so many other people that are involved in that.
So you're saying with the rehearsal process, so doing theater, there's a lot of rehearsal. Mm-hmm. You were saying that in the past, rehearsal was a little more, they afforded more time toward rehearsal.
Yeah.
What do you think, some actors are like, I don't want to rehearse at all. I want to keep it fresh, man. I don't want to pre-plan anything. How do you feel about that? I mean, how does an actor rehearse a lot and then still keep it fresh?
Well, I think the rehearsal is to get you back to what your initial perception of the piece was, your initial instincts were. I think the first time you read something, it informs you with everything you need about that character, about that play, about the story. And then everything else, it's about stripping away all of these notions that pop up after that. The ego gets involved, self-aggrandizement, and all those things that can be detrimental to a performance. I think rehearsal gets you away from all of that stuff. And I think because you fail in rehearsal, you're allowed to make bad choices in rehearsal. And so part of what happens is the more you do a piece, the more you put it on its feet, the more you ask questions, the more it gets into your body. The whole idea is to live a character, not play a character. And so it takes work to get to that place. You know what I mean? And so, everybody works their own way. And I've worked, long enough to know that everyone has their own process, and, that's fine. But for me, I love the rehearsal process, and every project that I've been in where the rehearsal process was allotted, it just is more deep, it's more rich, the characters, everything, because you find out what works, you find out what doesn't work, and then by the time you're shooting, you're not wasting your time, and it's in you.
I think that's also the beauty of working with a friend or a coach beforehand. If you don't have that opportunity, that you can get it up on its feet.
Well, I always call you, like I call you Tommy, because for me, I need that. I need that. Yes, I know what it feels like when I read it, but I also need an objective opinion. You know what I mean? And just to play, just to hear it back and forth. You know what I mean? And Tommy, you've been, you'll offer up suggestions and offer up different ways of looking at things that I hadn't considered. And I don't know how that's not a benefit. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's important. You want to exhaust the ideas. You want to get rid of the bad ideas so you can keep the good ideas. But the only way you can do that is by trying it out. You know what I mean?
So you always come in on a first day of work on a set. You're coming in with a point of view, always.
Listen, man, if I got an audition, if I'm reading for anything, I'm calling up Tommy and say, hey, would you take a look at this? Even if I can't come in and spend time, like sometimes we'll spend, a couple hours just talking about the material. But even if I'm not available, we'll Skype, or I'll call him up and say, T, what do you think about this? And we'll talk it out, and we'll talk about the characters and the intentions and the motives and all the things that make it jump off the page, the things that subtext work,
Can you talk a little bit about that? So you said every actor has a process. What is your process? I mean, you talked about Joel Schumacher giving you advice about journaling. Do you do that? Do you journal? Do you do backstory?
If I have the time, and so the process kind of has to be malleable. It changes on every job. Like with drag, I was coming off of a place, and I didn't have the time to do a journal, but there were things that the play had opened me up to that fit perfectly with what I was doing with drag. The rhythm of Shakespeare is very specific. Shakespeare is hip hop. Shakespeare is the first hip hop. You know what I mean? And Richard is the most lyrical play, with Richard II. And a lot of it is in rhyme, and it's like a cipher. You're bouncing stuff with other actors who are bouncing it back to you. So it's very rhythmic and melodic in that way.
There's a great line, I think, in Richard II. I think people will hopefully
double
check me. I've wasted time, and now time wastes me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, man. It's a great line. It's a great line. So many great lines in Shakespeare, man. But rhythmically, his style was his own. And so doing that every night prepared me to be able to just sort of ease my way into Zoller's rhythm. Because Zoller has his own rhythm, and he'll put words against each other, like true, honest, and finished, forgotten. It's like play, fast forward. You know what I mean? Like it's he does that within sentences. He just pit words against each other, and I found that very interesting how he plays with words. But I was so open coming off a stage that it was, I was in that. And I think also too, I've been doing this now 24 years, and so experience also prepares you. I couldn't have played this part 10 years ago. I didn't have it. I didn't have what it took, to make this character work. But now I didn't have to. Life experience, stage experience, life experience, all these different things that are yours, that are personally yours, that you take into your performance, like your essence, it changes over time. I couldn't have done this role 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. I couldn't have played this part the way I played this part. It just happened to find me at a time where I was ready for it, and it was ready for me.
So your changes, your process changes with the circumstances, but is there any kind of what part of your work is really consistent from job to job and audition to audition?
Well, I read it.
Oh, that's good.
Good for it.
No,
It's beautiful that you said everything comes from the script, which I think is beautiful.
Absolutely.
But is there a key for you? Is there something like physical, for example, for you that like helps you really key into the work and what you're doing? Is there something that always, like some people talk about music, that they find a song, or some people talk about cologne and they talk about their shoes, like everything's about the shoes. Is there anything kind of like that really,
I think again,
for
it
you?
starts on the page. I mean, in terms of the physicality, that depends on what the page says about the character physically, whether I'm going to drop some weight for this character, whether I'm going to put on some muscle for this character, how loose is this character, what's this character eating for breakfast? You ask all those questions, and with specifically Drag, he's called Slim, and I didn't have time to like lose, 20 pounds, but before we started shooting, I lost 7. Just coming off a stage. And so thinking a week and a half from the rehearsal, the play, into like, I got the role and we're shooting the role, week and a half, I think I lost about 7 pounds. And then I continued to sort of, lose a little bit as we went along. Physically, how do they walk? You know what I mean? Which you think about all these questions we talk about, what type of music they listen to. With Dragged, it was, I listened to actually Zahler's music from Brawl. Because he conducts his, he composes his own music and writes his songs, and then he goes out and gets the OJs, and Butch Tavares to come in and sing them. And so I saw an early cut of Brawl, and I was like, what is this music, man? And he was like, oh, it's my music. So I started listening to that music, because I felt like the worlds were very different, but the rhythm and the tone were a lot alike. So music, there's been places where characters that I played where, they're isolated. And so, I would walk around with more orchestral classic music. Ludovico Einaudi is one of my favorite composers, and Ennio Morricone. Love that stuff. Like, and so I would just put that on. But then there are other characters I played where it's a Public Enemy. You know what I mean? And it's Fight the Power. Or it's Rage Against the Machine. So it just depends, and sometimes that changes within scenes too, tonally. Like if it's a piece where there's an emotional component that you need to access to yourself, you don't really want to, it's a different type of cry with Fight the Power than it is, with, say, the score from Cinema Paradiso. You know what I mean? It makes you feel different if you're listening to Debussy as opposed to Eminem. It makes you feel different, and so
music is a big factor in kind of opening up you emotionally for a character, and in particular scenes.
In particular scenes. I remember we shot the scene for Bessie, which directed by can't say enough about her. Dee Reese is who I think is just incredible. And we shot this scene. It didn't end up making the movie, but it was a very emotional scene. And it was a scene where, my character and my sister, played by Queen Latifah, we were at a gravesite and crying over our mother. And so, it was Ludovico Einaudi I went to, just tonally, and it was I think it was Fly from the movie The Intouchables, which is a French film, great French film.
Beautiful movie.
Yeah, Omar Sy, and it was just a great film. So that music, sometimes I'll find music from other movies.
Are you listening to this right before the take?
Yeah, or on the way over in the van, the ride from the village to the set. Sometimes if I'm trying to isolate myself, insulate myself, and block out the world. I'll keep the headphones on and just sort of stay off to myself. Without until they need me to come and do it. Need me to come. Because I think it's just creating the space to perform, to creating the space for the moment to happen. That's like the important thing. It's like you have to give yourself that. You know what I mean? And that's what I was talking earlier about protecting your performance. Like you know what you need, for certain moments. You know what it is. You can't will yourself to it. You just have to get yourself away from it as much as possible. It's like, yeah, it's a thing you can't really describe, but you know what you need, and so you have to create the space for it to happen. You have to get out of your own way.
That's a lot of creativity. It's about, with actors, Stanislavski talks about the emotion is like an animal in a cage, and if you stick your hand into it, the animal's going to go, no way, I'm not coming out, but you have to put out the breadcrumbs so it comes out. So it sounds like you're just setting yourself up, knowing you're not willing it out, but you're like enticing it.
Well, it sounds like you create the circumstances under which a pure, spontaneous moment can happen.
Yeah,
right?
no, basically you are convincing yourself that it's okay for this to happen. It's okay for you to show this to these people. It's okay for you to give this to the camera. Again, you're opening up your heart, and it's going to live forever once it's captured. And so you want it to be as pure, come from as real of a place as possible, and you have to create that environment within yourself so that artistically and emotionally you trust that it's okay. And the director has a lot to do with that environment as well. The set and what's happening and the environment that's created on the set, but when people are making movies, everybody wants the movie to succeed. And so, I have never been on a set where if we were shooting something emotional or something, that was a bit risque, where everyone respected it. They've always respected that.
Now, how do you do that in an audition? How do you do that when you have, other actors sitting out in the waiting room, eyeballing you like, I want this part, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Going in the room knowing you're doing 3 different scenes. The second one might be super emotional. The first one might be the first meet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The audition process is so different than actually working. And so what I try to do is, in an audition process, not make it an audition process. I try to make it a performance. That way I'm actually giving them something. I'm leaving them with something. And it's not about getting a job. It's about me giving you this performance, and you take it or not. But that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give you this performance. I'm trying to let you see this character through what I bring into the room. So all of those other circumstances that we talked about, that we create, the isolation, the quiet, even when there are people, and I'm sure other actors have been like, he's a dick, because I'm not trying to talk to you when I'm coming in the room. I don't want you to talk to me. Like, I'm trying to give a performance. And, I could talk to you afterwards in the parking lot, but I'm trying to give a performance. And so you have to create whatever you need as an actor. Whatever you need, you have to create that to make it happen.
What a great way to think about that. I know Al Pacino said, with auditions to young actors, like, you have your 5 minutes to perform. You get to perform.
Right. That's it.
And if we have this idea that we're getting a job, it just locks you up so much.
Yeah.
Tension.
Yeah, it's all about just giving, I think. Because I think art is spiritual. At the base, I think it's spiritual. I think you are giving something. I think, it begins with the scribes, but you're translating. You're a translator. You're a bridge, to that connective world. Like, it's like, hey, come see this story through my eyes. We're storytellers.
As a musician, it's interesting. I'm hearing a lot of echoes of musicianship. A person that plays violin, they have the technical skill, hopefully, to play it. But what really makes it beautiful is when their heart and their soul can go through that instrument. I would think it would be the same thing for an actor. Your body, your person is your instrument. Finding a way to bring your heart and your soul in that performance through those lines, in that work.
Yeah, that openness that you have to have. There have been characters too where because I play piano, and there have been characters where I've created scores for the character. Nobody's heard them but me. But, I'll hear, a melody and I go, oh, this is where this character lives. Sometimes it's harsh, sometimes it's soft, But yeah, the musical comparison I think is right on. I mean, there is that. It's like you're floating on a cloud, man, and you're just trying to grab little things to take with you.
Speaking of instrument, I mean, one of the amazing things about you is that, I mean, you're an artist, period. And years ago, I suggested seeing a voice person. And I suggested Fran Bennett.
Fran Bennett, yeah, man.
And, nowadays, Tommy, I mean, young actors, unless they come out of a Juilliard or a training, don't really do voice work and body work. And you jumped on it. And tell us about working with the legendary Fran Bennett.
Fran is amazing. I mean, she is...
First of all, Fran Bennett is a Linklater voice teacher who
yeah.
taught for 35 years at Cal
Arts, yeah.
So the people that came through her, Don Cheadle on.
Yeah, she's worked with some incredible artists, and she herself is an incredible artist.
Yes, she is. I've seen her act.
Yeah, she's amazing. I saw her do Othello, and she was an incredible Othello. So she's, you recommended me going to see her. I think it was for Miracle at St. Anna. I had the Spike Lee picture that I did, and I had this speech, this huge speech that I was going to give to these soldiers, and that was the first thing I worked with Fran on. But I go to meet her, and Fran's tough, I think at the time she was in her 80s already. I think she's 92, 93 now. And she is still kicking ass. And, but, I go in to work with her on this. And so we don't work on that. She has me work on Hamlet on the floor. And I would lay on the floor and do Hamlet, oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. I'm sorry, dew. Liquid you, honey, she would say.
Nice.
And but we would, she really was about freeing the body. She still is about freeing the body, freeing your voice, your natural instinct, your pool of vibrations, she would call it, opening up that, like getting what's in your gut out without any obstruction. That's, the way she teaches, but she does it with such a flair and such kindness, toughness. She's so real. She doesn't pull any punches. Oh man, I remember I was having trouble with something one day, and it was I can't remember what it was, and I was like I can't do that, and she jumped on me. She's like, there is no such thing as can't, and she had tears in her eyes, and I think that's the last time I ever said I can't do something, even in just throwing it away. There is no can't. She's so instrumental in my life as an artist, as a performer, and like what she's given me in terms of freeing my voice up, and also coming from a place where I wasn't the best communicator, and having her free that in a way where there is ultimate confidence coming from such insecurity. Forever in her debt, and forever thankful that, she is still a part of my life.
That's great.
Amazing.
You talked about you're an actor. You did theater. You're doing Shakespeare. You're doing tons of television, movies,
Pictures.
There's all pictures. Yeah, pictures, man. Moving pictures.
Pictures, babe.
So there's a lot of actors sometimes that are out there that think that there's a completely like not just slight adjustments, but completely different techniques and completely different worlds. Can you talk a little bit about how you move from theater to television to movie? How does your process change? What are the differences to you? Or is the work the work? Do you always still bring what you bring to the process regardless of what medium it's in? I'm kind of curious, you know, especially for other actors that think, oh no, I'll never do theater because I always want to do film, or, you know.
Yeah, hey, if you look, I think it all informs the other. I think I can move within all of those worlds, but take something that I learned on stage and then bring it to film. I can take something that I learned on film, the subtleties and the nuances, you know, where sometimes you think everything in the theater is so big and out, but, you know, you can find nuance on stage and in moments as well. And you know, I learned that from doing film and television. So I think anytime you're being creative and as an actor in all of the different mediums, you're learning something. And every process is different, you know, like with a play, you know, because you do have so much more rehearsal time, you know, there's at least 3 weeks, you know, most times you get a month to rehearse, and you start just at a table read. You know, there's some television and some movies where you don't do a table read anymore, where you don't get to hear it. Now, I'm kind of back and forth with that one, because there are some times where the table read, just because it's for the executives and it's not really a space of creativity, it's just so the executives can have an opinion about it. And that's, you know, hey, if they're producing it, they have a right to hear it and see it.
And also, let's face it, sometimes that's a performance.
Oh, no,
I have people who have been fired from just their table reads.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we prep that.
I think you should prep it like you're prepping, you know, like a performance. I think if you always have this, come from this place of like, this is what I'm giving, and I'm trying to create something to give. I'm trying to work on this so I can offer it up. You know what I mean? I'm offering it up to the audience. I'm offering it up to the executive. I'm offering this up. And then you can say or whatever you want, comment, you know, criticize, whatever you want. You know, once it's out there, and people have a right to say whatever they want to say about a performance. You know, you may not agree with it, but it's their right, you know, and that's why we do it. And so I think, though, all the mediums, for me, I don't want to say, people go, hey, well, do you like theater more than, you know, TV? Sometimes I do. You know, sometimes when I can't find the part that I want to play, and I'm like, oh, I'm sick of reading things, and this doesn't interest me. You know, like, this doesn't interest me. Come on, like, where's that role? But again, when you covet it, it never comes, right? And so you could go off and do a play. I'll go do a play. You're like, oh man, I could go do Richard II right now, even though I did it, you know, 2 summers ago. I could go do it right now, and I would learn something altogether different. I could go do August Wilson right now, and even though I've done it, I would learn something new about myself, because I'm in a different space. It's like reading a book, you know, when you're 20, and then reading that same book again when you're 30. Your knowledge of things, your body, your experience, your life has taught you different things. So your perspective is going to be different. So your performance is going to be different.
Is there anything, now that you're truly a working actor, so is there anything? Yes, you are, sir. So is there anything like surprising about this career and this vocation, this calling? Something that you didn't expect, that, you know, you maybe had a preconceived notion about it when you were watching it a lot, or when you were watching motion pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I'm curious about, now that you're in it, like something that you really, really didn't expect there to be, or something new or surprising that you weren't anticipating.
I think William Goldman said it best. In Hollywood, nobody knows anything. You know, there's things that I thought I knew about the business, or I thought I knew about the work, and that's constantly evolving. Things are constantly changing. I mean, you know, the way we look at pictures now is very different than the way they were even constructed when I began, you know, more than 20 years ago. So I think you always have to be open. You know, you have to be open to learning. You have to be open to listening to other people, you know, growing, always watching and studying, other people's work. Like I get inspired by watching other actors, watching movies, going to shows, going to see plays. I love that because it's also everything you do. Like when you love it, everything you do sort of helps you grow within it. Like everything, it all begins to feed, the thing that you're doing. And so, yeah, I would say there are times where I thought I knew stuff, and there are times where I go, I didn't know shit. And that sort of is on a revolving scale. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, maybe I know. No, I don't know. So I just try to always stay open to learning and stay open to changing and evolving, because you never know where that'll take you.
Dude, this has been absolutely fucking amazing.
Thank you.
I want to let you go, but I do have to ask.
Yeah.
We're going to let you go. Just a couple basic ones. How do you memorize lines, man? You're
Shit.
so fucking good with that.
It's getting harder these days.
What's your process with that?
I try to memorize intentions first. Like I try not to worry.
So what you want in a scene first?
Like, who are you? Who am I? Where am I? Where am I going? What do I want? How am I going to get it? And then, the intentions behind the words.
Okay.
And that can be as general or as specific as you want it to be, depending on.
So you going beat by beat with it, and kind of getting that, getting kind of a structure of that, and then the words come
What's
after
the intentions, and the words sort of come after that, and then once you really know it, your intentions can change on the words, on the sentences, or on specific words, which will completely change up the delivery.
Totally.
And that's the fun, that's the play of it all. But I think intentions are the things that are more important within learning the dialogue, and good dialogue, let's be honest, is very easy to learn. It's bad dialogue that you go, why can't I remember this? Oh, because this sentence doesn't sound right. That's why I can't remember. But when it's
so what do you do with that? Do you just have to go over it and over it?
You create the
do you
line.
Say it out loud, or
I think if anybody has written something, there's a level of respect that you should always approach it with, because it's very hard to write. It's also very hard to get something made.
Yeah.
So I think there's a level of respect for that you should always, carry into it. Like I'm not one of those actors like, well, I'm going to change this up. This line is shit. Because I write.
Right.
And I hear other actors say that sometimes, and I'm like, you don't know how hard it is to fucking write, obviously. So what I try to do is just, create what the sentence would be for me. Mm-hmm. Even if I'm saying it, in a different way, if I'm saying their line that was written, the sentence beneath the sentence is the one I create.
Okay.
And that makes it real for me. So again, subtext, intentions.
Before you come over to me, you're off book. Are you running it with somebody?
No, just me.
Are you saying it out loud?
Sometimes, or I love to hike.
Uh-huh.
So I'll say it while I'm hiking.
Gotcha.
It also helps get you out of a rhythm, because your breath starts to, the more the higher you go up the mountain, the more labored, your breathing becomes. And so
you have a lot of very sweaty scripts.
Oh, big time. You don't see them when I come over here. It's like soaking wet. But, I think that breaking up the rhythm, because
Great. So you're not getting locked in.
So you're not getting locked into a choice. You want to know it, but you want to be free with it. You want to be able to play, and if you learn it, and I've seen this happen, in sets where, an actor has learned it a specific way, and then you throw them a curveball and they can't adjust because they learned it a specific way. Yeah. That's never good for anybody, So I try to learn it in a way that's not rote. As Fran Bennett would say that. That's rote, darling.
Yeah.
And just be able to keep the choices alive, not lock into like one thing. And then that way you can pull from everything.
Amazing. Tommy, anything else?
Oh, no, I think that kind of covers it. Thank you so much.
Oh, man, thanks for having me.
Really great
The first one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Shit.
Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for
Tory.
having me. Absolutely.
True pleasure.